I feel like we live during times where talent is like really emphasized a lot. And I feel like talent is important, but I don't think we understand talent very well nowadays. And the reason I say this is because I think a lot of people don't understand that uh, the way you invest in talents and the way you cultivate talent is actually through discipline. Um, and I think uh, there's also a big misunderstanding in terms of discipline. I think most people confuse discipline with willpower, which it is not. Willpower is a byproduct of discipline. Discipline is actually having really effective containers or effective habits that allow you stability in your life. Um, and most people look at people who wake up every morning and exercise, who have a really good routine, as people who have a lot of willpower. But actually, it's not. It's actually this a habit. It's a habit that becomes easier because you do it every day. And and I think the reason for this misunderstanding is because it's oftentimes so painful to overcome inertia to get ourselves to do something, such as exercise. It's oftentimes where we're like, oh my gosh, you know, like I have to get up in the morning, and it's like the most painful, like typically in the first 3 days, and then it gets a little bit better, but still really painful in this first week. And then it's still painful for the first 3 weeks, sometimes more, but typically, and then it gets easier as about, a month, 4 weeks to about 5 weeks go by, and then it's just kind of a dull pain. So overcoming inertia is so painful, and most people never get beyond the inertia. So every time they start a new habit, it feels like you require a lot of willpower. And in the very beginning, it's true. It can require a lot of willpower. It's one of the reasons why one of the most effective ways to get a habit is to just have a singular habit and just focus on that one habit until that habit sticks. Also, when you implement a new habit, it requires a tremendous amount of change. If you want to do something in the very beginning, how often has it been that you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't consider this. Oh, this is getting in the way of this. So let's say, for instance, you want to exercise 30 minutes in the morning. Then what happens, the 30 minutes going to push something out. You're going to have to stop doing something, or you're going to have to do something less, or you're going to have to rearrange your day. And it really wreaks havoc to the current routine you have. And most people think that they don't have a routine because it's not conscious, but actually people already have a routine. If you were to track your life, you'll realize that actually there's a certain pattern to it. Uh, Even if you don't do it the same thing every day, there's a certain pattern to it. And that pattern is a routine. And it actually keeps your life stable because we all need stability. And so when the very proof that we have stability is when we try and make a change, we start realizing how it gets in the way of all the things we're doing. And the way you create a change is you could do it meticulously by coming up with a plan and writing down everything you do, and then shifting that, and then realizing, oh, this is where it needs to go, and then when I do this, I'm going to have to do this in the afternoon, and things like that. And some people have the brains to do that, but not everyone. Actually, the thing to do is to actually just decide, let's say, for instance, if you're going to wake up at 7 instead of 8, just to do that, and then deal with the consequences after you wake up. And just to take note, oh my gosh, okay, I was gonna take exercise, but I'm not gonna get to exercise today. Maybe I was gonna exercise for 30 minutes, but maybe I'll just have to do it for 5 because I'm gonna have to deal with the other 25 minutes with a situation I didn't anticipate if I wake up early. And it's kind of like that for the first few weeks. And that's one of the reasons why it's actually a good idea to really reduce the focus of the changes. So instead of saying, I'm going to wake up at 7:30 and exercise, it's better to say, I'm going to just start first waking up at 7 a.m. instead of 8 and see what needs to be done in order for me to be able to exercise for 45 minutes before I go to work or something like that. And as you can see, the actual focal point is actually just getting to wake up at 7 with the reward of being able to exercise. And if you can, great. But you need to make the adjustments as you wake up, and that needs to be part of your expectation, because otherwise when the resistance of the things that you didn't anticipate come up, then it derails us. But to make this simpler, so the issue is that we only remember the pain of the initial pain of when we first make changes, and very few people get past that. And so we don't have a lot of confidence of creating routines. And so we believe we don't have routines when we already have routines. And we believe that it requires an insane amount of willpower. What's actually truer to say is that oftentimes we make big changes, really significant big changes, that we can see would hold the promise for our life changing. And not only that, we make several changes all at the same time. Exercise, diet, and finances, or relationships, all at the same time, instead of actually just one small component. Like, okay, I want to exercise. That's a longer term goal. But first, I'm just going to start waking up at 7 a.m. and then see if I can. If I can, great. And, having something very small. A 5-minute impact is not that big. So like saying, okay, I'm going to wake up and exercise just for 5 minutes. If I can do longer, great. And then if this change in schedule disrupts anything, then I'm going to actually work on that until my schedule or my routine is cleared up. And that gives you a huge amount of rewards and requires less willpower, because you're not trying to make yourself do something you can't, but you're studying, you're exploring it. So that's an example. But the point here is that most people confuse discipline with willpower. But if it's a habit, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. You get up and you brush your teeth and you don't think about it. You eat at lunchtime. That's a routine, and so on and so forth. Or if you don't have that, then you eat at certain times. You eat typically after something. There's a certain pattern in your life. And basically, so you're already doing that. And the only difference between a routine that we call discipline is a routine that's actually working for us and that's conscious, where it's specifically designed to get a certain result, and a routine that just got created unconsciously due to circumstances, or I should say the past decisions of your life that you didn't realize that you made. So now the reason I'm explaining all this is because for one of the most common complaints I get from people who are talented is basically that they don't have enough discipline. And they always lament the fact that they don't have enough willpower to train. And that's a really interesting thing for me, because everyone else who considers that they don't have talent actually believe that it's the talent that allows you to be disciplined. It's actually not. That's several different things. They're two different things. As a matter of fact, I've more often found that people who, quote unquote, are considered to have less talent are much better with discipline and therefore get much better results. People who are talented oftentimes don't stick around when things get tough. And I've seen this a lot with people, where people who are talented say, wow, if I just had some discipline, I would be able to make so much out of myself. And so I find this really interesting. And so you will see this. Look at anyone around you who you consider to have a lot of talent that you really respect, but seem to always kind of flounder. And you'll notice that there are a lot of people, and for some reason, there's a certain kind of tragic romanticism assigned to that. If that person could only be more disciplined, then that person would be great. So it's kind of like it raises the esteem a little bit, but it's still very tragic. So talent is actually not what it's all made out to be. Actually, what we're really looking for is discipline. And if we think about the people that we really respect deep down inside, those are the people who have discipline. So really, discipline is where it's at. But I feel like in a modern day, people go for talent because there's a myth that if you have talent, you don't need to work as hard. And so everyone's trying to find that bliss, where they don't have to work as hard, but they can get all the esteem that they're looking for, the respect and the adoration. But I have never come across someone who actually could get to any level of mastery that would gain people's respect without significant amounts of discipline. It doesn't matter how talented a person is. At some point, their talent's gonna run out, where it's gonna meet the edge of their talent, where talent alone won't do it, and they have to learn things they can't do, and that requires hard work. And when someone hits that, that's actually when most people who have talent give up. Because people who've been told that they're talented, and because of the talent they can get there, how often do you hear people, how, often have you seen people who are told that they're smart or they're talented, and then they think that because they're smart, they shouldn't have to work hard. There's a certain idea, whether we watch movies or something like that, someone is so talented that the talent alone actually gets them there. But it actually really doesn't. And uh, uh, what happens to everyone is they run out of the talent, they reach the limit of the talent, and then they have to start working really hard. And oftentimes, actually, it makes it more difficult for them to work hard because it was so easy up to this point, and the desire to give up is actually even higher. And so, actually, as we desire talent, I think we need to actually really consider whether it's really that useful. Now, however, it's not uncommon for people who have latent talent, like talent that's not obvious, but they work really hard, and then they get really good at it, and they don't mind putting in the work. And as they keep doing it more and more, they actually start finding talent that was not so apparent in the very beginning, and those talents start really coming to the surface, and they start getting better and better and better and better at it. And so discipline is actually what allows us to have our talent really bloom. Because as we stay disciplined, we start seeing things about ourselves that we didn't understand. If whether you're learning how to play the piano, or whether you're learning how to do accounting, or whether you're learning how to do some kind of sports, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, what you'll notice is that when we're stuck and when we're exploring how to get past that point where we're stuck, we're really actually learning things about ourselves that we didn't know. And to get past any point of stuckness, we need to be able to do a couple things. Like the first thing we need to be able to do is acknowledge, like honestly, where we're stuck and why we're stuck, where we're lacking the foundation, or where our weaknesses are, like where our capacity is lacking, or where our knowledge is lacking, or where our skill is lacking. And like once you identify it, you can do something about it. And then the next portion is to figure out how you want to solve the problem. Once you understand the problem, then you can solve it. And so sometimes you just need more practice. But oftentimes in this process of discovery, you find something about yourself that you didn't know that you're good at. And oftentimes the solution actually goes in that route. So when we find solutions, when we acknowledge where we're failing and our weakness, then ironically, we can also see where we can shine. Like for instance, actually a good example for me is years and years ago, I took a test that's called Colby, which actually measures something that's called your conation. And it's basically your instinctive drive in terms of what your hardwiring likes to do. And there are 4 different measurement criterions. The first one is called fact finder, second thing is called follow through, third one is called quick start, the fourth one is called implement. And the first one basically shows a person's aptitude of how much information they would like to actually gather. And so people who have a high quick start, they like to gather lots of information before they make any kind of decision. And people who have a low fact finder, they actually don't need as much information. And there's a strength to both, actually. And that's actually what I like about the test. The test actually doesn't say that if, being a high fact finder is good. Actually, sometimes you need a low fact finder, because if everyone requires a whole lot of information to make a decision, then sometimes nothing gets ever done. So as a matter of fact, actually a good team is where you have an equal portion of actually not an equal portion, but 25% low and about 50% mid and 25% of the high. And so the people in the middle make sure that things keep moving and get done. The people on the low numbers make sure that things are expedient, and the people on the high numbers make sure that things are thoroughly done. So that's fact finder. And then the follow through is basically about organizational skills of how well you like to systematize. So the low numbers from 1 to 3 like to make shortcuts. People in the middle from 4 to 6, those are the numbering systems. They like to make sure that things that they follow procedures and they find comfort in procedures. And then the people from 7 to 10, the top numbers, they like to make sure that they create systems. So if there are no systems, the first thing they'll do is create systems. And if there is a system, then they like to make it better. So those are the people who create systems, and so on and so forth. So in my case, I have a low fact finder, even lower follow through, and I have a high quick start. And quick start is basically people who require a lot of change. So people who have 1 to 3, they require a lot. They create stability. So that's why those people are important. The people who are in the middle only take necessary risks, and the people from 7 and above, 7 to 10, they actually are there just to make a change to see what happens. So those people take unnecessary risks. And if you think about a group, you need an equal number of those people. And so in my case, I have a low fact finder, I have a low follow through, and then I have a high quick start, and I have a high quick implement. And implement is actually a question. If you have a low implement from 1 to 3, you're an idea person. You don't need to implement anything. You're happy with just having an idea. It feels like you just got done with your job. And people in the middle like to repair things. When they don't like to create things from scratch, but they like to repair things. And then the people in the high numbers from 7 to 10, they like to create things from scratch. So in my case, I have, as I said, a low fact finder and even lower follow through, a high quick start and even higher implement. So those are like, I've got nothing kind of almost in the middle, but basically 2 lows and 2 highs. And that would make reading very difficult for me. And I realized it's because of my low fact finder. But the way I learned how to overcome that is I learned that if I am reading something and I'm creating models of what I'm reading, which is my implement and my quick start, creativity and change plus like doing something unexpected plus actually creating something, then I understand the material really well. So I learned how to read not by trying to read or do something I can't do. I learned how to read by actually relying on my strengths and by being able to understand what it is that's making it so difficult. And so this is actually a good example of how staying with something. So I was staying disciplined with reading. I realized that reading was a very important skill that I needed to learn. And I never liked reading. Reading was always a very difficult thing. And now I'm an avid reader. And when I stayed with the discipline, I found out that I have a particular talent for reading in my own way. And I found out how the talent manifested. And so this is why I say that discipline is actually what allows a person to really mine their talent. And I think this is like a really key concept. And I think this is really undervalued nowadays and really not really well understood. And so in order for this simple example to work, if I go back, I said that talent is important, but discipline is actually what really creates the investment into the talent, and discipline is not willpower. First, one of the key things I did was I just basically created a time where I would read, a regular time I would read. And basically, that was my goal. So my discipline is a container, not willpower. And then I made it as pleasant as I can. I basically set a timer and said I don't need to read beyond this time. And then I can journal about it as to what worked about it and what didn't. And I kept just studying myself. And so I didn't even actually make it about reading per se in terms of actually more just how to read. And then I actually read a whole lot of books on how to read better. And those also really help. My point here, however, is that it wasn't based on willpower. It was based on a container and a routine that initially took some willpower, but over time became just a routine where it wasn't based on willpower at all. And as I kept doing it, my talent kept growing. And an area that used to be considered not even my talent actually now became a talent because of the particular way I read. And I just want to kind of just really clearly show the relationship between talent, discipline, and what talent is and what talent isn't. and how to be able to really actually create success in a person's life by understanding the relationship between discipline and talent, and how when we stay with something and we keep studying it and understanding it, that really it creates the opportunity to learn about ourselves, and that's actually how we get to learn about our talents. So hopefully this was helpful, and this will aid you in your journey of really actually just finding freedom in your life, where you realize, oh, if I want to do something, I need to create a container for it. And if I continue doing this, then over time, I'm going to start seeing the opportunities that I didn't see before. And that's really going to bring up my talent. And, um, one thing I want to mention before I close this talk is um, that once you start a routine and it becomes a habit, we continue it because we remember how painful it was to discontinue and start over again. And so the fear of starting over again is actually quite significant. And so when we think about slacking off on our discipline, we go, oh, no, 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 no. You know what? I'm just going to do my minimum today. I'm just going to continue. Even though, like, let's say for instance, you didn't sleep. It's like, I'm going to run. Because if I don't run and I follow my habit, it's going to be way more difficult. And so people who have a real routine, they actually continue the routine because they don't want the pain of having to start over again and having to fall out of a routine. And so the pain becomes as much a part of your discipline as much as just a pleasure. It's not just all pleasurable. It's actually the pain as well. And so it becomes easy, because a lot of times when we're not feeling well, the reason we keep doing things anyways is because the pain of not doing something is higher. So anyways, so in summary, when we have a goal and we really want to excel something, we just want to not rely on our willpower, but we want to rely on a routine that becomes discipline. And when you become disciplined, it looks like you have a whole lot of willpower, because you continue, in order to not experience the pain of overcoming the initial inertia of creating routine. And that process over time allows you to really consciously mine your talent, and that's actually what allows someone to reach mastery. Hopefully you found this helpful. Thank you.